5:05 on February the 9th. I am not sure how everyone else's view is for introductions. If your view is all the same, I am Sherry Lara and I am the city treasurer in Lander. Want to start on the top row? Mayor Meyer?
Yes, John Meyer from DuBois, Wyoming.
Erla?
Erla Checky, the WAM office.
Justin?
Justin Schilling, Member Services Manager from the WAM office.
Mayor Hall?
Mayor Matt Hall, City of Cody, and WAM President.
It looks like Joel is away from his desk. Bob?
Bob McLaurin, I'm with WAM.
Dave?
Dave Fraser with WAM.
Regine?
Regine Strube-Fasten, City Lander.
Sabrina? Mike? I see their names. Maybe they're just muted. We'd like to welcome Mayor Hall for attending this meeting. He would like to give a presentation. If you'd like to go ahead and take the floor, Mayor Hall.
Thanks, Shari. I just wanted to do a little greeting and introduce myself for those of you that don't know me. My name is Matt Hall. I'm the mayor of City of Cody. Just got reelected for another 4-year term. Ran unopposed, so tough competition. But I just wanted to, really take this opportunity. I'm grateful to be the WAM president. I kind of a little unfortunate how I got this job. I worked well with Scott Dillinger. He, of course, was our previous WAM president, and he apparently had some opposition in his mayor's race in Mountain View. So with that, he turned the reins over to me in January. So it's something that I look forward to, and I really want to try and do what I can to make this organization, really the quintessential organization down in Cheyenne. I really think that we, our municipalities, our voice has been a little bit, let's say it hasn't been articulated well enough, or it hasn't been championed well enough, I think, sometimes in Cheyenne. And that's certainly nothing. I know our staff is doing well to bring some of that back. But, we have, as you all know, 70% of the people in this state live in municipalities. And so I really think that our voice needs to, hell, it already is the loudest. It just needs to be the most effective, I think, down in Cheyenne. And that's where I want to bring this organization. So I want to encourage all of you guys to reach out to myself or our staff with, of course, our good executive director, Dave Fraser, or Justin down in the office. And of course, Bob McLaurin, our acting lobbyist. If you have any issues or if you have any thoughts on bills, we're only as strong as when we get input from all of you to really help us to get there. And it's our voices as mayors and council members and clerks and treasurers and managers that actually carry a lot of weight with our legislative leaders in this state. And we got some probably tough road ahead as far as all the finances goes. I know you all know about that. Probably made a lot of cuts to your own budgets this year, but we need to make sure we're well represented down there. So I do appreciate having Mayor Highsmith on our legislative leadership committee. When I did get appointed president, it was on me to appoint a vice president, and I appointed Carter Napier, who is the city administrator from Casper. And he's already, I think, done a good job helping me out to support me while I'm trying to work on legislative stuff. He's doing a lot of back channel stuff. And then Kelly Krakow, who's been one of our legislative members of our legislative leadership committee. I asked him to take over as chairman of that LLC, and I know he's going to do a great job. He's the mayor of Albin down in the southeast corner of the state, for those of you who haven't been there or don't know. but anyway, I look forward to working with all of you as much as possible, and you know, when we finally get a chance to maybe meet in person, and hopefully we'll get that done during our summer conference that we're still working towards. So I appreciate the few moments of your time, and I'll turn it back over to Sherry, and it's just good to see you.
Thank you, Mayor Hall. Did anyone have any questions for Mayor Hall? Okay, the next thing on the agenda looks like a legislative update. Dave, do you want to go first, or Bob, or both of you?
Dave, go ahead and start this off, Dave.
Yeah, the way we've been doing it at the regional meetings, thank you, Shari. The way we've been doing it at the regional meetings is that I've been leading off and then making Bob do all the hard, leaving all the hard stuff for Bob. So I don't know why we should deviate from that strategy now. Appreciate everybody being here. I wish we were there. I'm sure we're not alone in, I've had enough Zoom, if I never had another Zoom meeting in my life, it'd be just fine with me. But having said that, I bet we'll have more, even when things get back to normal, I bet we'll still be using Zoom a lot more. But anyway, I wanted to Bob is really going to kind of cover what's going on with the current legislative session, which we're kind of in a recess from that right now until March.
It's halftime, Dave. It's
Halftime. Yeah. So Bob's going to kind of report on that. I kind of wanted to say a few words about the 2020 session, and only because it was immediately after the 2020 session that COVID hit, and we, had to cancel the region meetings that would have been in April, and we really didn't get a chance to talk about the 2020 session. I'm not going to talk much about it because we've got a current session to be focused on, but I do want to at least make sure that you know of a couple of new tools that are in your toolbox as a result of the 2020 session. Let me lead with, we tracked well over 100 bills. I don't know the exact number. We could come up, that's a knowable number. I just don't know it off the top of my head. But there were 36 bills that we kind of actively engaged in, either for or against, that we took a real active role in those fights. And of those 36, our record was 30 by my count, and anybody can dispute this if they want, but even if I'm off by a couple, we still did really well. By my count, our record was 34, 2, and 2. 34 wins, 2 losses, 2 ties. And I think I believe that took a good step forward in Mayor Hall's goals. Certainly, we're, for the most part, getting what our members in the 2020 session anyway, we had a really successful rate of getting our way, getting what you wanted us to get. We covered things, and I'm only going to cover 2 of these. So if any of these strike you that you want to talk more about them, make yourself a note and ask me. But just to make a list, we dealt on everything from franchise fees to municipal securities, municipal option tax, underground facilities, water, vehicle bids, local government distributions, public records, affordable housing, gun buyback, governmental claims, sanctuary cities, municipal elections, liability for property damage, state health insurance, lobby funding, taxation of government property. And that wasn't one of the ones I was going to talk about, but that was a huge win because they were proposing to basically to charge property tax on city-owned property and facilities. Special event liquor licenses, government procurement, professional services, public works contracts, unoccupied home fees, tourism, consolidation, subdivisions, fire and electric safety plan reviews, ethics and disclosure, Wyoming retirement plan, government waste, fraud and abuse, and budget and finance. Those are some of the issues that we covered on those bills, and we're successful on the 2 that I want. Well, before I mention a specific 2, I mentioned that by my count, our record was 34 wins, 2 losses, and 2 ties. I want to talk just for a moment about the reason for that. That's really, you know, I dig thinking in those terms. You know, I'm a former ball player and I'm a former high school basketball coach. I like to throw that out every once in a while so you guys think I'm cool, but I don't know if it even works. But any rate, I kind of like to think in those terms of the win-loss record. But the reason we were so successful really was everything. I mean, you really, to have that kind of success, you need everything to line up. And it really did. You know, we had a strong team on the ground in Cheyenne. We had good coaching from the board and from the Legislative Leadership Committee. We had good participation from, we had fantastic participation from our local leaders. When we would send out calls to action, you guys would act and get a hold of your legislators, and time after time, you know, bring in the votes we needed. Really, there were a lot of those wins that we really did felt like we really did snatch victory out of the jaws of defeat. And it was usually when we called on you guys to get a hold of your local legislators and let them know what was important to you and how you wanted to see them vote. And so we had a lot of our conference just was timed really well for folks to get in the building. We had a lot of folks that came down when we needed them too. When I say folks, I mean, you know, elected officials and, you know, managers and department heads, specialists, as well as they really like to hear from the elected officials, and they really, what you say carries a lot of weight with those folks. So Bob and Matt, what am I leaving out that was part of that success formula?
I think the big one was the municipal option tax. I think that was a big win for us.
Let me talk about municipal option tax. That's one of I said I wanted to talk about two tools that were in your toolbox. By the way, we had a good strategy on all these things. I think we had a well worked out strategy. And along with that is that we were all on the same page. We didn't have, as we have had at sometimes in the past, we didn't have any time during this session that I'm aware of where we were fighting amongst ourselves, at least not in front of the legislators. You know, we did have some things we had to work out amongst ourselves behind the scenes, but we took a united front to the legislators, and we didn't have them hearing different messages from different corners of the state. And so that's due in large part just to your character, but also you know, our staff here tried to do a good job of getting you talking points so that people would, on the important issues, so people would be on the same page, and the legislators would hear the same message. The municipal option tax, you now have, as a result of passing the municipal option tax, you know, and the municipal option tax is a good example of this, where we even had Mayor Highsmith, for example, that came down and said, you know, a lot of you think that the small towns are against this, but I want to tell you why we think this is good for small towns as well as big towns. And we really appreciated that, Mayor. I think that made just a ton of difference, maybe all the difference in this. At any rate, you now have the opportunity to ask your voters, just in the city limits, to pass up to 1 cent in sales tax. In order to get all of our cities on the same page, and in order to get the counties in agreement, we had to make some compromises on that. So the short of it is, and if you want to talk in more detail, feel free to get a hold of me offline or ask questions now if Shari allows it. But the short of it is that you can ask your voters to do that under when two circumstances exist. Number one, that the 5th cent is in effect in your county, the general purpose tax, what we commonly call the 5th cent. And the second thing is that the second thing that needs to exist is that either the special purpose tax, which we refer to as the 6 cents, either the 6 cent is in effect, or your county commission by resolution waives their right to get in line first and says, go ahead, city of whatever. And of course that could happen if either they're having trouble passing that 6 cents, or if they aren't interested in even asking the voters about the 6 cent, they can tell you that they're not going to, and you can go ahead. Are there any questions about that? I know Mayor Meyer, by the way. I shouldn't open the door for him to do this, but I remember sitting in Thermopolis with him when we were talking about doing this, and I said, well, and I said, and he asked about it, and I said, well, let me explain it to you, and he said, no, I think I got it, and and he explained it to me in such a direct and way. I almost, really in a humorous way, that I just had to say, yeah, you're right, you got it. But I appreciated that discussion.
That was a good discussion.
Yeah. But he set me straight on a couple things, and it was hard to argue with him. But at any rate, so you have that now. The one thing that we didn't get in there that was a disappointment is that kind of at the last minute there was an amendment that said we could only do that at a general election, and at the time we didn't want to blow up the bill by, you know what I mean. There wasn't much we could do about that. We decided we're going to come back later and clean that up when there's a good opportunity. We may think there may be a good opportunity as soon as this session, and Justin's been doing some footwork with a couple potential sponsors that would maybe run a bill that would take general out of there so you could do it at any authorized election. And the reason for that is obvious. If you can only do it at a general election, that really limits the amount of time you can do it for. The second tool in your toolbox that I want to mention to you, and then I'm going to be pretty much done unless there's questions about the 2020 session or anything I've said. At that point, I'll turn it over to Bob. But we were successful getting a bill passed to create a surface water utility in statute. And so what that means is that you can create an enterprise fund for your storm sewer, and you can charge each landowner a fee that would go into the enterprise fund to do the stormwater. Now that's not something you have to do, but that's something you can do. And if you choose to do it, it'll have a couple of upsides. The first is that it certainly could relieve some strain on the general fund, which presently is where you're, paying for stormwater projects and maintenance out of. But secondly, I know most of you are backlogged a little bit on stormwater projects. And so in addition to relieving some strain on the general fund, it would also allow you to get more active in your stormwater projects. And probably, I know I've talked to many of our members who have some pressing needs that they think they'll be able to take up with this. The couple of cities I know that are working on it, I don't know if Casper is. Casper was one of the main proponents for it, so I wouldn't be surprised if they're working on it soon. But a couple of cities I know are working on it right now are Cody and Jackson. So if you have, and I know they're communicating with each other. Their region met last week and they learned that each other is working on it, and I've been copied on some correspondence between them. So if you are thinking about it or you're wondering about it, there's at least a couple of cities that have already begun to study it. And obviously, we want to one of the purpose of the organization is to leverage the sharing of that information. So everybody's not trying to figure it out on their own, so we can kind of figure it out together, and whoever cracks the code first, I know is going to be perfectly willing to share the secret sauce with the rest of us. So with that, Shari, I would certainly take any questions that anybody has about anything I talked about or didn't talk about, and otherwise I would turn it back to you for Bob's portion.
Dave, this is Mike Anderson, Hudson. I think Joel and I've had this call, but is the sewer water, I have issues where a ditch runs through the middle of town when it floods in the spring. Would that be stormwater that you could assess this fee, or?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And the way it is, without getting too much in the details, because like I said, we could talk about those offline, and Let the experts in our organizations talk to the experts in our organizations. But the way that we initially, one of the reasons we weren't getting traction at first is we were trying to create a whole new section of statute, and we were just getting lost in the weeds. And so finally, and came out of this region, Casper City Attorney says, why don't we just add this to the section for water utilities? And so that's what we did. We literally added, I'm going to say 7 or 8 words to that section of statute. So you would set this up the same way that you will have, and of course, would have been 100 years ago probably, but you'll set this up the same way you would set up a water utility. You'd jump through all those same hoops. And that's exactly what it's meant to address, is those, those flooding issues. If there aren't any other questions, I'll turn it back to Shari and ask her to let Bob take a turn.
Bob, would you like to give your update?
Yep. Thank you. As of earlier today, there have been 121 House bills introduced or numbered that are on the LSO website, and 97 Senate files. We're tracking a number of them. I'm going to run through, I kind of know we're a little short on time. I'm going to run through 35 of these bills. If you're interested in looking what's being developed or what's happening, the LSO website, and then Justin's bringing up the WAM website. So we have what's called capital impact. Most of you are probably familiar with this, but I wanted to run through it just quickly to make sure you knew. So if you want to see what WAM's doing around legislation, you go to advocacy, click follow legislation. Once you click that, it brings up the bills, and you can sort them by House bills, Senate bills, the ones we are by topic. It's updated as the bills move forward. The website updates it automatically. We keep adding bills as they keep dropping them. I think there's March 15th is the last day, or March 8th is the last day to introduce a bill. But this is a good tool if you want to see what WAM's watching, where it is, what our position is. So when you bring it up, this is a sort by the House bills that we're following. The red boxes mean we're opposing them. The blue means we're supporting them, and the green means we're just something we're keeping an eye on. If you want to print it, you can print it. And so I generally sort by House and Senate when I'm doing this. But I want to start today with the House bills, and like I said, there's been 121 introduced so far. Some of them have died. Some of them have been passed into law. As you're aware of the session, they had an 8-day session last week, a Zoom session. There were a number of members on the floor of the House and the Senate, but most of the legislators participated by Zoom. They passed a couple of pieces of legislation, had a number of days of committee hearings. They crank up again March 1st. It's going to be what they're calling a hybrid session. Most of the members will be there, but if there are members that don't want to go to the Capitol, they will be able to attend and vote by Zoom. The governor has made the vaccine available for all the legislators that want it and selected journalists. No lobbyists are going to jump the line at this point, but we expect we'll be there in the building working on WAM's behalf on these bills. So I'm going to start with House Bill 12. This is a bill that would limit the dates that you can have bond elections, similar to what they did with the municipal option tax, where you could only have a bond election every other year. It's been introduced, referred to House corporations. It's, I think, Stivar's, but it just restricts the dates. It's a preemption on local authority. We're opposing it. House Bill 13 was a cleanup bill for the liquor division number of technical changes to the liquor law. There were two changes that were relevant to cities, towns, and counties. One was that it's no longer required that the clerk go out and physically post the notice for the liquor license hearing on the premise. That's been eliminated, so it saves the city clerks a little bit of work. And the second piece was it changed the definition of dispensing room for restaurant licenses to a dispensing area. I believe that got stripped out, and we're still to the same standard that we were previously for dispensing room for restaurant liquor licenses. That bill did pass. I don't know if it's been signed by the governor, but it passed both the houses. House Bill 14 is a bill that would make it easier for broadband companies to get franchise agreements from cities, towns, and counties. Dave worked on that during the interim, and it worked for us. We set some deadlines for when we have to respond to applications for broadband requests within our right of way. That's going to House corporations when they reconvene. House Bill 26 is a 9 cents a gallon increase to fuel tax. It would, as I recall, generate about additional $800,000 for cities, towns, and counties, and $6 million for the state general fund. It's passed House Revenue. It's been referred to House Transportation. We'll see if anything passes. A lot of the new legislators were elected on with no new taxes pledges. But that is in House Transportation, so we'll see how that goes. House Bill 33, government ethics. This is a bill that mostly relates to the University of Wyoming and the judicial branch. It does include local governments and ethics disclosures. Mark Harris has looked at it. It's okay. We're in a monitor position on that. House Bill 33 is one we need to take a really closer look at. It provides felony penalties for interference with public contracts, has the potential to have serious implications if a local official makes a small mistake. The LLC is going to take a look at that on the 16th and take a position. We're likely going to oppose it. House Bill 37 is a road user charge. Right now, the maintenance of highways and roads across the state are funded by the fuel tax. Because of cars are getting more fuel efficient, there are more electric vehicles on the road. The fuel tax collections are not keeping pace with the need for highway maintenance. The highway department believes that the road user charge is a new way that would replace ultimately the fuel tax to finance highway maintenance and reconstruction. And this is essentially a charge by mile for people that so if you drive a lot, you would pay more. If you drive a heavier vehicle, you would pay more. It's probably an idea that's 10 years away from being ready for prime time. There are a number of states that are working on pilot programs, but it's not going to go anywhere. But I wanted to bring it to your attention because you're going to hear about it over the next 5 to 10 years, probably, as this is going to be the method that replaces fuel tax for highway maintenance. House Bill 44 was an omnibus water bill that has a list of water projects. If you have a water project that's on that list, it would be in this bill. That's passed and been signed by the governor. House Bill 50 is a direct distribution bill. You remember last year in the budget, we were able to maintain the $105 million for direct distribution above the cap money. This is House Appropriations. I'm going to set this one aside for just a minute because the bill that really addresses direct distribution that's going forward is Senate File 64. So House Bill 50 is going to sit there and probably not go anywhere. We'll talk more about direct distribution when we get to the Senate bills. House Bill 55, tobacco tax. This is I think it's 10 cents. I forget how much the increase is on cigarettes and tobacco, like Skoal and Copenhagen and stuff like that. It came out of revenue, House revenue. Its own general file. It was on general file all last week. He kept slipping down the list. I doubt it's going to go anywhere. The Wyoming taxpayers are strongly against it, and they're lobbying it pretty hard. So I doubt that's going to go anywhere. It's not a ton of money, but a little bit of extra money for cities, towns, and counties. House Bill 61 is school finance recalibration. And you might ask, why is this on our list? It's on our list because in the bill, there is a proposed increase to the state sales tax of 1%. So the state sales tax would increase from 4% to 5%. Dave has been working with WCCA and Brian Farmer at the school boards to try to come up with something so that the cities would get a piece of this. This 1 cent would be directed, the way it's drafted or is intended, is that all that extra money would go to schools so they wouldn't have to reduce school funding. House Bill 65 is political subdivisions deposit. This is a bill that's near and dear to Mayor Highsmith's heart. It would allow them to make deposits in their local savings and loans and Shoshone not have to go all the way to Riverton or wherever they have to go to meet the statutory requirements. It's in House corporations. Mayor Highsmith hadn't been scheduled yet. It's been introduced before. The bankers always beat it back, but this would be something that would be helpful to some of the small towns that don't have a bank in their town. House Bill 72 is the transfer of water and sewer districts. This involves, I believe, some folks in this region. It's the Wardwell Water District issue. I haven't read the bill yet. LLC hasn't looked at it yet. It's been introduced by Representative Sweeney and a couple of others. We're in a monitor position on that right now till we better understand the bill. House Bill 74. This would provide for removal of local city council members and mayors. Sets a process of recall. It doesn't specify anybody else. It doesn't specify county commissioners or elected representatives, just city council members. It's coming out of the Gillette area. We're opposing that. I don't know where that one's coming from. House Bill 75 is a bill from Representative Gray out of Casper. Voter fraud prevention would tighten up voter ID requirements, tighten up mail-in voting, generally tighten up voting requirements across the state. That's in House corporations. One that just dropped day before yesterday was House Bill 114. It's by Representative Harshman, property tax assessment. We haven't done a real in-depth analysis on it. It would essentially limit how much assessments could go up. It also provides that county assessors would be appointed by the Board of County Commissioners and no longer elected, which will be an interesting fight to watch. Finally, the last House bill I want to talk about is House Bill 117, the repeal of gun-free zones, bill number 3. There are a couple of others out there. We're opposing this because this is preemption on local control. WAM, the board, has said we don't care about guns. We care about local officials making decisions about what happens in their communities. But there's about 4 of those bills out there, 3 or 4 of those bills, those repeal of the gun-free zones out there. So that's the House bills. Like I said, there's 121 of them. If you want to sort of bop through them, go to the LSO website. That's where they all are. The WAM website will have more bills than we've talked about, because I left out some of the ones that we're just monitoring that don't have a big impact on us. We just want to keep an eye on it. I'm going to take the next couple of minutes and talk about the Senate bills. As I said, there's 97 have been dropped as of earlier this afternoon. We're going to talk about 15 of them today. Senate File 4 is airport districts would allow the creation of a special district for airports, and allow the assessment of a mill levy and taxes on some fuel fees. And this is primarily coming out of the Rock Springs Airport. A number of our cities have airports and are interested in this. If the bill passed, it could potentially relieve some cities of some funding obligations that they have for airports. For example, Mayor Hall, the city of Cody, they use general fund revenue to help support that Cody airport. If there's an airport district there, it may help the city of Cody. A number of our cities were concerned because they have a number of airports in their counties, and we're working with the Airport Association to try to better understand it. But right now we're in the monitor mode. Senate File 6, Public Works contracts. This would basically establish a pre-qualification list by the state, and anyone on that pre-qualification list would be able to bid any job bid by the city, town, or county. The highway department would pre-qualify contractors that do horizontal construction, i.e. roads, sewer, water, storm sewer, etc. The state building department would certify vertical constructions, town halls, schools, etc., etc. Right now we're in a pose mode. We are working with the general contractors and the county commissioners to come up with some amendments that would make it palatable to us. I'm not sure we can stop it completely. What we've been talking about is that there would be a pre-qualification list, but that list would be developed by WCCA and WAM, and anyone on that list would be qualified to bid a job. You wouldn't have to necessarily give the job to the low contractor. You still have to give the job to the lowest responsible contractor. But if there was a contractor that was on the list that you'd had troubles with, you just have to tell why you're not awarding it to the low bidder. That's at Senate Judiciary. Will be heard when they meet in March. Net metering, Laramie and Jackson were interested in that. That's passed the House. That's Senate File 16. It regulates how much utilities have to pay to buy back power that's produced by solar roof arrays. Senate File 17 is a big one for us. This, as you are well aware, you guys have to publish your minutes in the papers. This would eliminate that requirement. It would require you to put it on your website. And if you don't have a website, there's some other things you can do. It's being strongly contested by the newspapers. We had a very long hearing last Friday, I believe. Dave did a great job testifying on our behalf. It got out of judiciary, which surprised me. It's going to the floor of the Senate. It's on general file in the Senate. It'll be interesting to watch this. It's starting to get a little traction, but the newspapers are making the case that this is a First Amendment issue and that we're undermining transparency. Our argument is that everybody has computers and most people get if you want to see what happens at your city council meetings, you can go to the website and read their minutes and not have to pay the newspapers. If we're going to have to subsidize local papers, we have some ideas of how we might better spend our money. So that's out of judiciary. It's on general file in the Senate. Senate File 20 is personnel records, and this came out of the University of Wyoming, I believe. It allows for the opening of personnel records in certain cases, and it's primarily it doesn't have a lot of impact on WAM cities, but it does have an impact on Casper, Laramie, and Cheyenne, because the only people that this would, the only municipal employees this would affect would be the city managers who are employed under the council manager form pursuant to Wyoming 155301, I believe. And that's the city manager, Casper, Rollins, and Laramie. We're opposing that. It's a bad bill. It's a dumb idea. That's on general file in the Senate. Hadn't been referred to a committee yet. Senate File 44, solid waste transfer. If you've got a landfill and you're in the process of closing it down, this is the priority list for landfills. Senate File 55, this is, they passed some gaming legislation last year. They set a sunset date of July to come back and revisit this. This would extend that deadline until they can get some further legislation passed. Senate File 56 is Wyoming gaming modification. This is some changes to the regulations of how they're dealing with gaming. It has gotten pretty complicated, and most recently it's been referred to House appropriations because there's some talk from Representative Nicholas to take the money that the local governments get and divert that to the state. So we're watching that. That's at House appropriations. Senate File 64 is the big one. That is the direct distribution, the $105 million that was appropriated in last year's budget. The governor and his budget cuts reduced that 10%. Then that went to the joint appropriations, and the way it was going to be implemented, it was a 10% reduction, but it was all going to come out of the second half of the biennium. So effectively, it was a 20% reduction to your direct distribution. So we testified, or Dave testified at joint appropriations. We asked that it could be cut to 5, just to make it the level the playing field. The Joint Appropriations Committee did that, and we were very grateful for that. So that reduced basically reduced the reduction by $5 million from 105 to basically 99.5. It went from there to Senate Appropriations, where they reinstated the governor's full cut, and it has, there was a lively debate on the floor of the Senate, and I believe I don't know, can you correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's passed the Senate and it's now in House. I see Justin shaking his head. So it passed the Senate with the 10% cut. It's gone over to the House. It went to House Appropriations last week. They reduced it to 5%. They took it back to the original JAC. And there was some talk about eliminating it altogether, just taking it to 0. So it's going to be going to the floor of the House. And I think WAM has to decide what we want to do. And Mayor Hall may want to jump in here. We need to make sure that we get the bill amended, because right now it's just the House Appropriations has made the recommendation. Before the bill changes, the committee of the whole has to ratify that. So we need to get the bill amended, and then we have to decide if we want to kill it. I think we have a shot at killing it. There's an argument to be made. Let's take our 5% and call it good for the short term. Mayor Hall, you got anything to add about that, or Dave?
I'll chime in if you want, unless Dave, you were wanting to lead me to it. Anyway, just to recap what Bob was saying, yeah. So it from the joint appropriations, we got it from 5. I mean, the rub here is that 10% that the governor put in there, because it's the second half of the biennium, it ends up actually being a 20% cut to our direct distribution. And so at least the people on the House side have at least understood the math of that. And so out of the House Appropriations Committee, they corrected it. So they've amended in House Appropriations to 5%. That needs to go to the committee as a whole on the House floor. And then if they introduce the bill and they'll introduce the amendment and they get it changed from 10 to 5, then that at least gets it to an actual 10% in practice of what it would be to our budgets from this direct distribution. Now, the little bit of the side conversation is our associations here in the county commissioner associations have been having pretty lengthy conversations with a lot of the House representatives. And I think there's a little bit of traction just to go ahead and kill the bill. So they got it kind of buried. So it's not going to get brought out onto the committee as a whole, brought out onto the House floor again until March, probably the first week of March, I would imagine. And then when it gets there, I think as Bob kind of mentioned, we'd really like to see the amendment first, but then this is where all of you come into play, and all of us, is that if there becomes an opportunity, I think, for us to go ahead and kill this bill, which would restore the funding back to where it was. And if we have the opportunity to do that, then that's when we might do a call to action and try and get everyone to email, talk to your legislators, and try and get them in the House side to kill it. And if it does that, then it goes away. We get the $105 million for the rest of the biennium, which in our case is just the 52.5 remaining. So the only thing I would kind of say now is between now and the time that they reconvene, if you do run into some of the House representatives, bend their ear a little bit about it, see what their thoughts are on killing the bill. There's a lot of discussion the fact that money is appropriated from the rainy day fund, from the LESRA account. If it gets cut, it does not go back into the general fund at the state. So it's really not helping them solve the state problem. It's just kind of saying, hey, we all need to hurt a little bit. Reality is I haven't talked to any municipality in the state that hasn't cut their general fund this budget year by at least 13%, and some up to as much as 45%. And we've articulated that to the House, and I think they're receptive to that. So, this is one that, obviously this affects, a lot of our smaller municipalities and towns. And so when the time comes, and if you have an opportunity, talk to your House representatives, and, just let them know where you're at. Let them know how important this money is for the operations of your day-to-day services for your constituents. So at least that's my kind of thoughts on that, and just pay attention to some of the WAM traffic, and when it comes up, we're definitely going to need some help.
I guess the only other thing I would say is, and what the mayor talked about, is the short term. Long term, at least on the Senate side, it was made abundantly clear that direct distribution will be going away. So I don't know how, we're going to be able to fight that in the future. But Senator Kinski was pretty adamant. Some of the others. So we're just going to have to see how this plays out. I would guess that we're going to have local government funding as an interim topic. There was a lot of talk on the floor of the Senate. I mean, the debate on the Senate floor was probably 2.5 hours, and we were talking about $5 million, $5.2 million in a $2 billion budget. But there was a lot of talk about giving locals, or going into the Madden formula, giving locals more authority for raising their own revenue. So we don't know how it's going to shake out, but I would not be surprised if it would be an interim topic. So that's where we are on direct distribution funding. So far, they haven't talked about anything below the cap. So if there are any questions on that, I'll pause for just a second. Otherwise, I got about 3 more bills to run through, then I'll be done. Okay. That was Senate File 64. Senate File 65 is government waste, fraud, and abuse. That's a bill from Senator James that would create a hotline for anyone that would wanted to report waste, fraud, and abuse from government, any branch of government. It's been referred to Senate Appropriations. Not sure it's going to go anywhere. Senate File 67 is another gun bill, gun-free, repeal the gun-free zones. This is from Ogden Driscoll. It's a Senate bill. It's been referred to Senate Judiciary. Senate File 73 is a bill about tolling of I-70. It's been up for years and years, doubt it'll go anywhere. Senate File 82 is the last one on my list. And this is a local impact assistance. This came up last year. I think we beat it back. And it's, if you have an industrial siting, it's, the state pays a portion of the sales tax, and they were proposing to reduce it from 2.77 to 2.0. I don't have the numbers of what the impacts are on local governments. It only affects those that are having developments that are associated with the Industrial Siting Act. I have more detail on that as we go forward. But those are the bills we've been watching. Like I said, if you want to see the full list of all 200 or so, go to the LSO website. If you want to see what we're tracking, go to the WAM website. And then if you have questions, you see a bill, give me a call. My number is 307-413-3483. Pop me an email, respond to you. So that's what I have. So,
Mayor Hall. So Shari had to jump off. They have a council meeting this evening. So she had to go prep for that. I told her we would transition. So I don't know if you want to cover the little bit of roundtable discussion before we adjourn possibly, or.
Well, thankfully for Zoom, we can just do a quick around the horn. Mayor Meyer, you want to start for Du Bois, or any other comments on tonight?
I appreciate this opportunity to see you guys, and I certainly miss the direct contact and meeting face to face. That always seems to be a better way to talk to folks. But I do appreciate all the stuff that's going on. I'll be looking a little more into these bills that are going through, and when you get a chance, come to Du Bois and look at the museum. You'll love it. That's about it.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Mayor
you.
Highsmith, you've been too quiet this meeting. What's going on?
Oh, I've been on mute. I just noticed that. No, anyway, it's welcome to our leadership. Scott did a really good job, but I know you're going to continue on. I thought, last year was really good. I thought we really came together as a team under the leadership, and Justin and Dave and Bob, fighting for us and everything. I thought it was real impressive when Dave would say, well, I'd introduce all of them are representatives, but would everybody please stand up? And you just hear a whoosh as everybody stood up. It was good. That was effective. I look forward to be able to do that again, and look forward to seeing everybody in May. And then I just like to touch bases. Our clinic is doing pretty good for startup. I was there in the rehab part last Thursday, and there were 6 cars parked there when I got there. When I left, there was 4, but there was 2 new ones that were different than when and then Monday, and I was in there for my knee therapy. They had 5 people scheduled for that day. So, it's coming together. It's getting used. That's a good thing. But I really got my initial direction from WHAM that possibly we might be eligible for the CARES Act funding for that. And that was on my bucket list. And, you and Cheyenne knew that and brought that to my attention, and we pursued it and was able to make that happen. But WHAM's the one that got me. Either Dave or Justin, I forget which one, might have been Justin. One of the two of you mentioned that to me, if that might be a possibility. And I started looking around, and we ended up getting it. So that's a really big thing here in Shoshone. And I point that out to everybody, how important WHAM is to us to help the communities. So just a real, thumbs up for everybody in leadership of WHAM. Things are going pretty good in Shoshone, though. And I can't wait till our May meeting where we get to meet in person.
Great. Thanks, Joel. Thanks, Mayor Highsmith. That's all I got. I appreciate you gentlemen for joining us tonight. I'll just ask Dave if you had any final thoughts.
No, I appreciate everybody being here, and I just echo what everybody else said. It's kind of a drag that we haven't been able to be together in person, and certainly looking forward to that. And I'm planning to get up to the museum in Du Bois. That was on my list. In fact, the grand opening was coming right up when we all got locked down, and I don't know whatever happened with that mayor, if they just never had a grand opening or what happened.
They had an opening. It was not near as grand as what they anticipated, but it was well attended, and I have not heard any complaints at all. The only suggestion I have for you, especially if you're military or even if you're not, bring a Kleenex. I've noticed every time I've been through, somebody with the group that I met becomes emotional at some point in that tour, whether it's because that's where your grandpa served or something, or your dad or yourself, or it's just something that happens. And I don't know how to explain it, but even the tough guys need it.
Yeah, that tour it's amazing. The knowledge on all of the equipment, on all the pieces there. He's got a story for them.
What's the cost of
It's
entry?
amazing.
What does it cost to go in?
If you're a veteran, nothing. Otherwise, and I don't know what the fees are. I really can't tell you. You'd have to go on their website or Facebook site or something to find out. I don't think it's real high, but he has said that a veteran will never pay to go through his museum. So if you're a veteran, the cost is nothing.
That's great. Can't wait to get up there. Anyway, great to see you guys. Looking forward to seeing you all in person, and appreciate the work. It's been an odd, the way we've had the session be on again, off again, and it's been kind of odd, and it's been difficult doing the virtual stuff. Kind of cramped our style a little bit, but I think we've been figuring out how to make it work for us. And so anyway, I not only appreciate you guys, I appreciate all the work our staff does. And I will tell you this. I've never had a job where when I took the job, I didn't find that I had a little cleanup needed done with the staff. And this is the first time that I've just absolutely not had any of that. We've got such a good group of people, and they're good at their jobs. And I was talking to my wife the other day, telling her how appreciative I am of the staff that we have. And she said, yeah, they're not only, from what you say, they're not only good at their job, but they're good people. And absolutely. And I've had as I'm sure we all have, had the misfortune of working with some folks that weren't such good people, and it's just no fun. And so I want to, and I would extend that out to our membership. We've, our membership's worked real well together. I've got a lot of respect for our elected officials, and a real deep appreciation. I mean it. I would say this behind their back too, a real deep appreciation for the kind of people that we have here at WAM. That's all I've got, Mayor Hall.
All right. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Dave, Bob, Justin, and Erla. Thank you. Speaking of other WAM staff, and thank you, Maris. Thanks, Mayor Meyer and Mayor Highsmith for being on tonight. And you guys have a good evening. We'll see you soon.
Thank
You
you.
bet.